Welcome into the Locked On Knicks Podcast. Gavin, Schall, Alex, Wolfe. A Jekyll and Hyde weekend for the New York Knicks. Jekyll and Hyde weekend for Julius Randle. The Knicks split 2 games in Los Angeles. We'll tell you all about it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. And we wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. We are now available on all platforms, and that includes on YouTube. So if you haven't seen our smiling faces day in and day out, I empathize with you why you'd want to just listen to us, but you're missing out. There's so much more in the wide world of YouTube that we can show you, tell you, communicate with our expressions. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that notifications bell so you never, ever miss an episode. And so you don't miss out on the fact that the Knicks got a big win last night. But before that, who's talking to you? I'm Gavin, Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. He's Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of The Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. Check them out on all forms of social media at thestrick.land. And Alex, we realized we used to do this a whole lot. We kind of got away with it. A friend of mine was like, hey, why don't you recap the game? Some of us don't get to watch them. So Alex, rapid fire recap. What did the Knicks go through on their weekend trip to La La Land?
Well, there was a 106-95 loss to the Clippers, which is not as worth talking about as the 112-108 win over the Lakers. So I'll briefly talk about this Lakers win. So D'Angelo Russell came out super on fire for the Lakers. Julius Randle came out super on fire for the Knicks. Things stayed relatively even-keeled through the first 3 quarters or so. And then the Knicks were able to pull out a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. Things looked like they were going to be nice and comfortable until they weren't, as things always go. Over the course of the last minute and change, the Knicks saw a 10-point lead dwindle down to a 2-point lead. And then Josh Hart made some really clutch free throws for the Knicks to ice it and put them up by 4 late, which wound up being your final score after D'Angelo Russell, I believe, missed a last-ditch 3-point attempt that the Knicks rebounded and just held the ball. RJ Barrett and Julius Randle both over 30 points in this game. Emmanuel quickly with 15 as the third leading scorer. And then a bunch of guys just contributing across the board. Some really good contributions from Miles McBride, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes to a degree. Isaiah Hartenstein, without scoring a point, had a huge impact on the game. Josh Hart, same deal. Not a ton of points, but huge impact on the game overall. And then as far as the Clippers game, the Knicks were right in that one as well, even though they didn't seem like they were playing their best game in that one. They were in it through the end of the third quarter, but then Julius Randle gets frustrated at a lack of foul calls going his way, throws an elbow at Mason Plumlee, and then all hell broke loose, and he had to get held back by teammates and coaches and anyone with a Knicks shirt on the bench to stop him from trying to go berate the refs. He eventually gets a flagrant, and then the Knicks just kind of let go of the rope at the beginning of the fourth quarter and lost all momentum, and Kawhi and Paul George just kind of put them away, mostly Kawhi at the beginning of the quarter. So not a fun game, that first one on Saturday, but really, as you said in the intro, Gavin, sort of a Jekyll and Hyde situation for Julius Randle between these 2 games. I will say I was very impressed, if he had a game like he had on Saturday last year and then come into the next game, it would have been I don't remember exactly which game this was last year, but there was that one game where he just passive aggressively was like, I'm not going to drive at all. I'm only going to shoot threes. And he shot like 2 for 12 on threes, just as I don't know if it was his way of getting back at the coaching staff, the refs, whatever, but just that little passive aggressive, I'm only going to shoot from the perimeter because there's no point in me even going inside. But to his credit, I mean, he just came out and was his best self against the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it made a big difference how he was defended. The 2 games against the Clippers, Ty Lue, who's considered one of the best game planners in the NBA, It was sort of a playoff style approach to Julius Randle. Ty Lue described it as a cat and mouse game, which I thought was perfect because a lot of times the Lakers did, or not the Lakers, the Clippers sent 2 defenders, and it was to great effect, like over and over again. Julius was just consistently not aware of someone kind of like coming up to the side and just poking away from him, or he would panic when he noticed the second guy would throw the basketball away. And then there were other times, Alex, I hate to bring this up because I know you're a loyal Jets fan, but that Julius was seeing ghosts in Sam Darnold-esque fashion, and there wasn't actually anyone there, but there was a guy just kind of stunting over, and he would repeatedly make the wrong decision. At points, was trying to shoot his way out of it. All of it culminated in a 5 for 24 shooting night. And I did not watch this game live, Alex, but if anyone saw, tweet on the account, like 5 for 25. What happened? And it was, as people point out to me, it was somehow worse than that number indicated, because it wasn't only that he lost his cool off the court. Like, it felt like he lost his cool on the court, and it was like a really bad, like, Groundhog Day deja vu. Like, I feel like this is a trope in fantasy novels or fantasy TV shows sometimes where like the bad guy like becomes good, but then something happens where they revert back to being the bad guy for a day or two. That's what it felt like with Julius Randle. It's like, oh, did he get, like, was this a time travel scenario? Did he get swapped out with last year's Randle? Because it was stunning that the same guy that we've seen, I mean, for the last, again, 30, 40 games, make the right play over and over and over again. And when he wasn't, it was because he was scalding hot. Just insist on taking long step back twos when he had people wide open. And I thought early in the Lakers game, he made a real effort to get back to the things that have been working for him this year, which, sure, he was pretty hot from three and hit a couple early, but it was mostly like playing great defense, getting out in transition. He had 3 dunks in this game, all of them on fast breaks. And he was getting really deep position inside and shooting short fadeaways instead of kind of the long step back twos that defined his inefficiency a year ago. And I don't know about you, Alex. I was kind of curious that the Lakers weren't trying to replicate more of what the Clippers did. Maybe they don't have quite the same personnel to pull it off with all the Clippers wings, but that was almost the weirdest element of this game to me. And I know when we were talking about it earlier, you noted, like, as the game went on, the Lakers tried to do more of that, and it started working a bit.
Yeah, and I think they just went at it different schematically. Like, I think that they thought that they could get away with not doubling him at first, and then their solution was to switch Anthony Davis onto him in the second half, which, I mean, if you're going to one-on-one defend with anyone, Anthony Davis is traditionally one of the best guys to be like, okay, yeah, the other team's like big man is really good, like, let's just throw Anthony Davis on him and let's see how that goes. Especially because, like, out of the center spot in this game, the Knicks didn't really have any output. Like, Mitch really struggled, and Hartenstein, for all the good that he did, didn't score a single point. Mostly because the Lakers did a pretty good job of clogging things up down low. But yeah, I was a little puzzled by it too. Ultimately, in the end, they did sort of start doing that, and there was almost a couple disastrous moments down the stretch where, like, Julius was having to bring the ball over midcourt, and then was getting doubled around there. And that's just like, that's not somewhere where you want Julius Randle to be. Late in a game is doubled with the ball in his hands at midcourt, just trying to get the ball over in a key situation. But, they managed to pull it out. And I think the main thing was that I noticed in this game too, there was every opportunity for Julius to get angry again, because I didn't think they were calling a particularly, they had a pretty loose whistle again. Like, I thought that there was a lot of physical play being allowed down low, especially early on. And it would have been easy for Julius to fall back into the, like, I guess the refs in LA just hate me, sort of thing, and just shut it down early in this game. And yet he didn't, and just kind of adjusted and made it work, and started doing what's been his bread and butter this whole season, which is shooting from 3 and then attacking really hard inside. And he had a few huge momentum shifting dunks in this game as a result, because he was willing to just kind of put his head down, get in there, and attack. And it really worked out well for him. So, yeah, I thought this was a really great bounce back for him, and also just a really great switch around too of his ability to read those doubles when they did come and find some of his teammates. And he wound up, I think, leading the Knicks in assists for this game as a result. So I thought it was a great bounce back for him after probably his worst game this season against the Clippers.
Yeah, I think, and there was like a few bad moments here or there against the Lakers. Like JVG on the broadcast called him out twice for not boxing out in the first quarter, and that was pretty noticeable. He's playing way off on some of the Lakers, and it was kind of hard to tell if it was laziness or Tibbs' strategy, which honestly worked out. Like, was to just give certain guys open threes. I think our friend Benji noted at one point it was a combination of Gabriel. Troy Brown and Jared Vanderbilt, like Randle was gave them a combined like 9 threes, and they went 1 for 9 on them. So I guess it worked out if that's what he was doing. But there was a 4-play sequence that really stood out to me late in the second quarter. He had a quick crossover into a transition dunk that was just absolutely sick. And then he had a dump off to Mitch, and Mitch had just this ugly miss. And I don't know if Randle was mad at Mitch or he was mad at the refs for not calling anything, but he kind of he did kind of the classic Julius Randle thing where he just like lets his shoulder sag, and the Lakers got back and got a transition layup. I was like, all right, we can't have more of that. Then came back down and threw down another huge dunk. And then he had, then he threw it away, and the Lakers got another dunk. And then he came back down, hit a big 3 right before halftime. So that was like 4 plays that to me just totally sum up the Julius Randle experience. But Alex, if you're like me and you think Julius Randle is going to bounce back tomorrow, and you could actually put a point total on how he's going to bounce back tomorrow, there's only one place to that kind of bet, and that would be at PrizePicks. So how does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. So tonight, I think I am going to take, or I guess tomorrow night, I'm going to take Julius Randle over 24.5 points. I'm going to take Mitchell Robinson to have a big rebounding game. It's been a while. I'm taking Mitchell Robinson over 8.5 rebounds, and I'm taking Emmanuel quickly over 2.5 threes. He's due for another hot game. And the beauty of PrizePicks is you don't have to compete against other people. Those weirdos that live in their mom's basement and just grind out numbers all day. It's not them you're dealing with. It's just you versus the projections available. And they offer projections on essentially any sport you can watch. Seriously, it includes MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, on top of kind of the big 4 or 5 sports here in America. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe and fast withdrawals, and currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right. I think the other standout over the weekend to me, Alex, was RJ Barrett. Somewhat for the wrong reasons against the Clippers, where he wasn't all that bad in the game, right? I mean, 5 for 12, 1 for 3 from 3. But here's where the issue comes in terms of him making impact on the game. Didn't shoot a single free throw, only had 2 rebounds, only had 1 assist, only had 1 steal. It was a team worst, minus 21 in 30 minutes. This was not entirely on him, but it was kind of stunning to see the way Kawhi Leonard and Paul George just toyed with the Knicks wings. A lot of times it was against Quinn Grimes as well, but those guys, and obviously this is reality, but we're just on like 2, 3, 4 levels above. And I flashed back to, I don't know if you remember the game 2 years ago when the Knicks played the Clippers at home, and we came out of it talking like, man, like RJ, there's really something there. Like he was matching Kawhi shot for shot. He was playing great defense on him. And then just to see 2 years later, like you kind of expect, like maybe not for RJ to be Kawhi Leonard because he's going to go down as a top 35, 45 player of all time. But to, I don't know, like drop 26 in a big time matchup like that. And he just didn't show up. Like you want to be motivated for that type of game. It didn't happen. And then it came out tonight against the Lakers, and like Julius Randle was awesome.
Yeah, I think, so RJ 30 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. He ends up shooting 12 of 27 overall, but only 1 of 8 from 3, 5, 6 from the free throw line, though, which you love to see. I think the big thing with RJ in this game was that he didn't let the fact that the 3-point shot wasn't going down allow him to disappear. You know what I mean? Like there's some games where that kind of feels like that's like the thing. And that's the case for some other guys on the Knicks too. Like sometimes we feel it with Quickly, I think. Sometimes it happens with Randle, like where if the 3-point shot isn't going down, it seems to just kind of take them out of their groove. And then like RJ all of a sudden can't hit layups or anything else either. Not for lack of trying, because he'll still take like a ton of shots. But like if that 3-point shot isn't falling, it just seems to dictate his whole night. And he didn't let that happen in this game. Like, I thought that he really got after it, like getting inside, just taking advantage of what was given to him. There were a couple, looks where I was like, maybe you should have not taken that shot. There was one where he just got absolutely pulverized by Anthony Davis. Like, he tried to go up with his right hand, and Anthony Davis just came out of nowhere and swatted the crap out of it. But it was, I mean, pretty well telegraphed that Anthony Davis was there to provide some help if need be. And, so you take the good with the bad with RJ with those. But I thought that in general, he was doing a good job of, getting inside and just taking what the defense was giving him, like taking screens on the perimeter and attacking them aggressively, and sort of doing the quickly thing and getting guys on his hip a bit and using that to, work his way into the hoop and eventually go up for a layup or a floater or what have you. So I very much enjoyed watching that out of him. And in general, I think, like, if we just talk about the 3-point shooting, like, I didn't realize this until I looked at the box score like just a minute ago, but they shot 11 of 37 overall from three in this game, which just continues this abysmal streak that they've had basically since the Celtics game last weekend.
Yeah,
Where they
Lakers were going zone on them in the first
Yeah.
quarter or second quarter, which is a little embarrassing. But
Yeah, and they just can't throw it in the ocean right now, like 30% from three. It's pretty telling that they're still able to put together a win shooting that poorly from three. And really, I mean, in most of these games on this, well, other than I guess the fourth quarter of the Clippers game, pretty much every game on this road trip, they've been shooting like crap and yet still been within a few points or winning over all three of these teams. So I guess that's one of the encouraging things of this road trip so far. Like, the Knicks, even when they can only shoot like 25-30% from three, are still hanging. And RJ was sort of just like the personification of that in this game, along with Julius, who also shot terribly from three in this game too.
yeah, and it makes total sense, right? I mean, Jalen Brunson is the best guy on the team at self-creating threes. I guess Quickly's kind of right there with him, but Quickly's been a little bit cold. But more importantly, just the amount of threes Brunson creates for everyone else. Like, you're losing maybe 5 or 6 open threes per game that Jalen Brunson creates, and I can't even imagine like the number of threes Brunson creates just from like the gravity that he has and the fact that you can't leave him and the rotations that forces. But I wanted to circle back on RJ because there was the two things that stood out to me were, one, just the diversity of his finishes. Like we saw in the first quarter, he had two Euro steps for layups, had another one where he sort of played a cat and mouse game with Anthony Davis, where he was kind of daring Anthony Davis to bite, and he just did a pump fake, and AD never stepped up on him because he didn't want to leave Mitch, and then he flipped it in. And then in the fourth quarter, he had 4 layups in the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, including one just beautiful inside spin move. And then the last one was on a spin and then a pivot and then a step through to beat Anthony Davis on a really tricky angle at the rim. Alex, I'll throw this over to you because there's a play you highlighted, but his lob to Obi Toppin was awesome. And he also, his final bucket of the game was created by Josh Hart, but it was Hart getting a rebound and then just throwing a home run ball to RJ. And RJ, I think it was Austin Reeves, was right there back with him playing good transition defense. And RJ caught it, had a really tricky finish anyways. I guess my big thesis coming out of this game for RJ is he benefits so much when other players on the Knicks can get into the lane and then can pass him the ball with a defense that's already in rotation and him already having a runway. And some nights RJ gets those passes and he doesn't really take advantage of it. Like, he doesn't run into the basketball. Tonight, I thought, like, whether it was in transition or in the half court, like, he really benefited from other guys already getting the defense moving. And then all RJ had to do was be a play finisher.
Yeah, I thought the Knicks as a whole did a great job with that in this game. And that clearly was something that they must have talked about, was off-ball movement in this game. And I think that that's one of the best ways to get RJ going, is get him going downhill. Like, his best way of getting downhill is to get a head start, which is the case for most NBA players. You know what I mean? Unless you're like De'Aaron Fox or like, one of these guys that's like 99th percentile quickness, or prime Russell Westbrook or something. Like, the best way to get going is to get a head start and, have a quick cut to make and then just get a perfectly, needled pass in there to you. And that was the case. And Josh Hart is so good at initiating those things too. If we want to start giving Josh Hart his flowers
Yep.
here before next segment, like that's one of those valuable things that he does on the court, other than the like Professor Xavier level, crazy predictable rebounding like abilities that he has, where he could just like see where rebounds are going to go.
It's a great call.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, like his constant movement on offense, like they had him initiating a decent amount in this one. And JVG called it out at one point during the game, was like, oh, look at this. Like they've been, and this was in reference to Quickly and Randle, but he was like, they've had Hart bringing it down on this one side of the floor. So that then Quickly and Randle can set up in an action on the other side of the floor. And then you can get the ball in Quickly's hands, not at the point of attack, but in a, against maybe a tilted defense, that then he can hit it to Julius there, which I think was really smart. And the Knicks just kind of had that in mind this whole game. And it came through with RJ a bunch as well. But you know what? There's still more to talk about with Josh Hart and Emmanuel Quickly and those guys. But first, I do have to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And I've got a new thing to talk about with Built Bar. First one this year. The Built Bar March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now's your time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. And you guys know I'm going to be voting for all my coconut favorites, because they're just, you know what? They're the ones I always find myself going back to. I could try all the special flavors or whatever, but the coconut ones reminds me of an Almond Joy. Always my favorite. I think I'll probably be voting for coconut almond regular Built Bar. It's like the OG. That's my favorite. So, and if you want the Knicks to win, you should probably vote for that bar too. I mean, if the Knicks are the coconut almond Built Bar, that works pretty good, because it's a pretty great bar. So support your team and support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars and puff delivered monthly straight to your door. That's a crazy cool prize. You got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. Seriously, they're so amazing, and you won't think that they're even good for you because they taste like a candy bar. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're all high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. So run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. All right, Gavin, we're back to continue talking about mostly the Knicks win over the Lakers, because who wants to talk about a fourth quarter collapse against the Clippers any longer than we have to? But I'll throw it to you. I don't know if you want to continue on that Josh Hart thread that I was on at the end of last segment, or potentially highlight someone different. But I think there's still some pretty good meat on the bone for this Lakers win.
Now, I was really into this whole weekend from Josh Hart. I mean, even against the Clippers, like he didn't have a great game in that one, but he had a few really good plays. Like one that stood out to me was him and Quentin Grimes just had a nice ESP, and we haven't seen a ton of minutes with those two getting to play with each other, but he just threw, like, Grimes' defender was ball watching, and Hart, this was such a smart play. He faked the pass as if Grimes was popping outside while Grimes was cutting inside, and then just slipped it to him going back door. Easy 2 points there. And then Hart had a nice little midi turnaround. I mean, I didn't really know he had that in his bag, so that was great. And in this game, I was getting ready to come on, especially if the Knicks lost, and talk about, like, wow, this is sort of the first game where I didn't really notice Josh Hart all that much when he was on the court. And then he just changed the game down the stretch. I mean, it's easy to forget with the Knicks ultimately pulling this one out, but the Lakers had a 12-0 run in the third quarter where it looked like, all right, here we go. Things are about to fall apart the same way they did against the Clippers, where the Knicks were up 77-69, and that turned into an 81 to 77 deficit, which is not as nice of a score. And then from there, Hart just came back and hit a giant three-pointer, which is not really what you expect out of him. And then set up RJ for the two buckets that I mentioned. He hit Obi on like a 70-foot pass. It was the pass IQ would normally throw for a transition layup. I had a huge offensive rebound with 3.5 minutes left. That gave Julius Randle a jumper that extended the lead from 108 to 99, from 106.99 to 108.99. And when you look back to your point, Alex, that it was only a 2-point game down the stretch. That those 2 points proved to be pretty monumental. And then you noted in the open, but the 2 big free throws down the stretch, that's been an issue for the Knicks this entire season, right? I mean, we go back to that Bulls game, we go back to that Mavericks game. The Knicks have lost multiple games this year just because they couldn't make free throws. And it was guys like Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel quickly, who are elite free throw shooters, or Quentin Grimes early in the season, and Hart, who that's not necessarily what he's known for, but just stepping in and just could not have been calmer. Part of it was that the whole crowd for the Lakers were kind of dead tonight, but still great sequence. Also, this is a side comment, but it makes me so angry that Julius Randle still takes technical free throws. He missed another one tonight. And I know it's one of those things that, and I promise I'll keep this short, that like on paper is sort of like, haha, like, I guess Julius just wants to shoot. But to me, that is a leftover, like gross, nasty remnant from last season where Julius got the benefit of the doubt where other guys didn't. And it's like, what is to fluff up this guy's ego? Like he needs to take the technical when he's on the floor with Grimes and quickly, 2 better free throw shooters. And one point, like he missed the free throw that could have cost the Knicks tonight. And I don't know. It makes me irrationally upset because it feels like it's like Tibbs just spitting in the face of everyone else on the floor. I'm like, all right, we got to keep Julius happy. We got to throw him his little nuggets. I don't want to rip Julius Randle because he's been awesome this entire year. And that is honestly more on Tibbs than it is on Jules, but that really annoys me. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, on the bright side, when Brunson's active, that goes out the window because Brunson's usually the guy taking that free throw for better or worse. So
yeah, Brunson's been off on them this year too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind him shooting them, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Brunson went from like having that streak of 50 or 48 or something.
I think.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think he quite hit 50, but he was damn close. Like he went from that stretch to just like being, very, very off from the free throw line ever since. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I would at least, he's at least seems more qualified for that than Julius, who like for all of his great moments has struggled with clutch free throw making on the Knicks his whole time there, and just free throw making in general. He's just not a fantastic free throw shooter. But yeah, I mean, to get back to Hart for just a sec, like I think that he's so much like, especially late in games when you expect things to turn into a slog, he's such a valuable player for the Knicks in the sense that on either team, you're typically not going to find someone who's still so willing to push the pace as hard as he does, as late into games as he does. Like most NBA games, and the Knicks, for under Tibbs, have been super guilty of this, will start really slowing things down into half court offense, especially like the last like 6-7 minutes of a game, just trying to generate their shots and run things for their star players, run ISOs, whatever. And Hart just is kind of like, no, like I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my head up. I'm going to keep looking for passes down the way. And, it created some awesome looks, to your point, in this game for like RJ, Obi, like all these various guys, like just by virtue of keeping his head up at all times. And, the second that, because he's so good at grabbing rebounds himself, the second that he grabs the rebound, he just immediately looks up the floor because he's like, well, I'm a good enough passer and I'm fast enough that I can get something going here. So he's just really such a perfect mix of skills for this Knicks team. It wasn't his play, but I guess this will be a good opportunity to give Hartenstein a little bit of credit here. My favorite transition play, while I'm thinking about transition plays this whole game, was Isaiah Hartenstein did such a good job for a guy that scored 0 points in this game, ends up with a team high plus 19. And he had 0 points, but 11 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block in this game. One of those 2 steals, he had this like gorgeous strip of, I think it was Anthony Davis, and it was like a just kind of like a poke away of a pass, grabs the ball, kicks it to RJ Barrett. RJ around midcourt looks like he's getting harassed to the point where he might cough up the ball. And then he just pulls this like super smooth behind the back dribble to his right hand and then keeps driving with his right. And then to RJ's credit, one of his big things that he doesn't do often is look up often enough to see an Obi Toppin especially. And yet he looks up and sees, oh man, Obi's wide open for a dunk, and tosses him up a picture perfect pass for a reverse dunk for Obi, who himself had a really good game. And honestly a pretty good stretch overall, like a pretty good weekend. Like he's kind of back to that point now where it's like when he comes in, you feel like the Knicks get a real breath of fresh air of something different from what they get with Julius Randle. Which before, like for a stretch, especially when Julius was playing his best and Obi was kind of struggling a little bit, he felt like he was kind of just filling minutes. But now he's back to sort of doing his thing again. So one little sequence there sort of encapsulated things I liked from three different guys. Considering we've already talked about RJ, I'll throw it to you, Gavin, if who you feel like highlighting out of Hartenstein or Obi or someone else now.
Yeah, I just one play for Obi Toppin. Even going back to that Clippers game, this might have been my favorite play of the Clippers game, where Obi toasted Paul George off a pump fake and then went in off the dribble and just put his shoulder into Mason Plumlee's chest and put in a left-handed banker. Because those are sort of the flashes of skill that we've gotten from Obi early in the season, and we don't get from Obi often enough. And I'm sure you saw it, Alex, but there was a pretty interesting quote from Cam Reddish this week on his home in New York, where he said, I didn't feel like I could miss a shot without having to come out of the game. Essentially, that's a paraphrase, to be clear, but that was sort of the implication. Like basically, I did like think like, don't miss every time I shoot, because if I miss, I'm going back to the bench. And he said, most importantly, I know I'm not the only one that felt that way. And we've said for years that Obi Toppin probably felt that way. And to me, that's a pretty clear confirmation that Obi, behind closed doors, has probably said similar things. And it is a very, very tricky mental thing to kind of just get straight in your head when you're already dealing with the pressure of being an NBA player, of trying to make it, of playing in front of whatever 20,000 people every night in person, another on some nights like a couple 100,000, couple million on TV. And then to know if you miss a shot, your coach isn't going to give you another chance. And we've seen, I think Obi find his confidence a little bit more again when there's a really dire stretch this season. And I still think we ultimately know how this is going to end with Obi Toppin. And I think probably this offseason is going to be him on another team. But for the time being, for the rest of the season, the Knicks could really use the boost and just like the similar to Josh Hart, to your point, the randomness that he's injected. And one of the real bummers of this season is that his chemistry with Emmanuel quickly has, at least in terms of the actual on-court impact, it has dissipated a little bit. And that's a product of them playing together less. I mean, this game, they really didn't get to play together a whole lot because when Brunson's out, obviously Quickly's coming in and out with the starters, and it's RJ who's sort of the number one guy with the second unit on most nights. But it was really good to see from him. And I'm totally with you on Hartenstein. I mean, hey, he had one possession in the fourth quarter where just completely locked Anthony Davis up, ended up forcing a really tough miss on a jumper. As Mike Breen pointed out, he led the Knicks in this game as a plus 19. But there's a bunch of guys you could shout out for the Knicks. I mean, Deuce McBride was awesome. He had 3 steals in his first 5 minutes of action, ended up hitting 2 threes, had a transition dunk as well, 8 points in 17 minutes. And then Quentin Grimes, you go back to the Clippers game more so, but I thought he was really good attacking off the baseline that game, had 4 assists in that one. Certainly could have done better defensively against the Lakers, but he did some. I like at least that he's looking to drive again, Alex, because there's a period where it just felt like Grimes was really, really lost.
Yeah, I liked that aspect of his game better in the Clippers game than the Lakers game. I actually thought for Grimes versus the Lakers, he was doing great at making that decision to make the drive, but then wasn't necessarily making the best decision once he got inside. Like it was like 2 possessions stand out to me. I think they were fairly early in the game, and they might have been some of the last drives that he made, but like the one he came in and he sort of seemed like he had a plan, but then he left his feet too early. And I mean, it was a testament, like Grimes really has like crazy underrated hops. I feel like he just got up in the air for this jump pass, and it felt like he just kind of like stalled there for a second, like Wile E. Coyote or something, like stuck in the air, and then went to go make his pass around the baseline, and yet it just didn't happen because it just wasn't a good, like he left his feet too early and then didn't have a plan, and then had the ball in his hands, was like, what do I do with this, and then tried to throw it and threw a turnover. And then on another possession after that, he drove in and just like got totally stuffed on a drive, and it didn't work out well for him. But the execution of actually going in there for those drives is good. I just think that similar to what we say about like any of the guys on this team, sometimes him, RJ, Julius, he just needed to kind of even quickly sometimes. He just needed to like process a little bit faster. Like it just felt like he was like a half second off of whether before or after, you know what I mean? Like when he took off too early, I think he was a half second too early on trying to make the decision. Then when he got blocked, I felt like he was like a half second too late. Like it just seemed like he couldn't quite get it perfect against the Lakers. But yeah, I loved the game for Hartenstein. His ability to generate second chances for the Knicks was so key in this game, him and Hart. And they're just such a dynamic duo. I mean, it's almost like we could have predicted that when we were talking about it when they first got Hart. Like we both were like, oh, this is going to be a cool pairing. Like him and Mitch or him and Hartenstein is going to work out really well because you get so much excess rebounding there. And those two were the combo in this game. Like they just had a fantastic time together. And yeah, that possession against AD was just fantastic. I thought that was one of the best defensive efforts of the game for the Knicks in this game against the Lakers. So big ups to him. And then I'll quickly touch on McBride too, and then we could probably start wrapping up. But I thought Deuce was really great as well. I mean, they alluded to it on the broadcast, like pretty high praise. Like I know Mike Breen knows the Knicks really well. So obviously he always highlights him a little more than your average national broadcaster. But even Van Gundy was like, I mean, they were really singing Deuce's praises for a guy that in a few days when Jalen Brunson comes back, probably will be back out of the rotation again. But this game just sort of showed like there is really something there with him if he could just hit shots. Like that's literally all it's going to take. And he's going to carve out like a 10, 15-year NBA career is if he could just start hitting threes at like a 36, 37% clip. He'll be good for life because, I mean, the defense is so awesome that all he needs to do is prove that he can be a positive on offense, and it's all going to be gravy for him.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I just wanted to mention Emmanuel quickly this week because we've been leading every show with him for the last month, and then I realized we haven't talked about him yet. But just the 3-level scoring again for quickly. I mean, against the Clippers, what stood out to me were at times how late in his drives he would be going up to the rim, and it just, I mean, he's one of those players where you can really see the hours that he's put in, like probably the 10,000 hours that he's put in. To just working on his game where it's like, oh, okay, he's probably worked on like Euro stepping right to left and his body's like halfway behind the backboard and still finding a way to put the ball in with his right hand. And he's probably just done that move that you get to maybe, I don't know, whatever, like 20 times the whole season. Like he's probably worked on it like 1,000 times over the offseason. And then when he got into the paint against the Lakers, like had a fake turnaround jumper and then just hit a jump hook. And then his ability to just be going in full speed for a floater and kind of at the last second waiting to see if the center commits or stays on Mitchell Robinson. And then when the center doesn't commit, like he can still just chuck in a floater at full speed. And he has the fadeaway game now too. So he came into the league, a guy who's really good at drawing fouls, really good at shooting from three. And now he's like from a skill set perspective, he's just behind Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle for the most skilled guy on this entire team. And that's pretty encouraging given that he's 23 years old still. Like I can only imagine Alex, like at age 27 or even, I mean, we've seen it with someone like Steph Curry, who seemingly is playing his best basketball at points at age 34. Like guys who work like that, even when they're smaller, Steve Nash too is another great example, can peak late in their career because their skill set just gets so crazy that anything you throw at them as a defender, they have an answer to. And there's still stuff for him to work on. Like he was having a little trouble in the game when Dennis Schroeder was pressing up on him. But I mean, there's just so much to be encouraged by with Emmanuel quickly.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a run for Quickly, and I thought that the Lakers game was just another. I mean, it wasn't his most spectacular outing, obviously on the 1 week anniversary of his like breakout performance against the Celtics. But it was a very solid effort. And, you know, if he could shoot 50% and shoot like 35% from three, like he very well could be a star at some point in this league. So he might already be well on his way there if you look at the starter numbers of what he puts up when he starts in games this year. Very similar to Jalen Brunson prior to coming to the Knicks. But I think we've pretty much covered it. I mean, there's lots covered because it was 2 games, but one more game on this West Coast road trip. One thing that I didn't mention, the Knicks have an opportunity to come out of this road trip 500, which I think is always the goal if you're going to go on a full-on West Coast trip all the way out to the Pacific Coast as a New York team. So things are looking pretty good. If they could just pull this game out against Portland, they should be in good shape in the standings. They should be in good shape morale-wise, everything else coming back home. So we'll see how that all goes. But we'll have you covered here on Locked On Knicks, no matter how late these freaking West Coast games end. We'll make sure to have something in your feed the next day. So thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you guys a few more times this week, as usual. Till then, peace out. Talk to you soon.